Welcome to Real Coaching Radio, the podcast for coaches by coaches. We are here to teach you how to get the most out of your clients and yourself. This is where beauty meets the beast, brains meet brawn, and science meets, well, bro science. Welcome to Real Coaching Radio.
Welcome back, team. This is the first episode we actually recorded. I think it's going to be the second podcast we released since coming back. Thank you if you're tuning back in. We haven't died. We're still here. We were just very busy and not very good with time management. Hopefully these will start to become a more regular thing. For me, the podcast, I love talking, as you may be able to tell, but the podcast for me has opened my eyes in some of the conversations I just had with Mark. So we're going to start to get more people on to start to open our eyes and open our minds a little bit more. Hopefully do the same for you guys to give you a little bit of other perspectives other than just the Bristolian Brummie accent that you kind of get coming across from myself and Mark. If two worst accents were to do a podcast, I mean, Bristol and Brummie's up there, but a Liverpudlian accent is probably up there as well. We just lost half of the listening population are either Bristolian or from up north, so this isn't going well. If you want to learn how to build muscle and what best exercises to do, then this is the episode for you. I'm not going to keep you any longer. Enjoy it, guys. Thank you for tuning back in to Real Coaching Radio. Enjoy this, team. We are Real Coaching Radio.
Hey guys, so I'm Mark and I'm here with Charlie and we are on the podcast Real Coaching Radio. So we haven't done a podcast which we just worked out since April this year. It's now October, so it's been a long time. Life's just been busy, work's been busy, both been pretty much flat out. This got put on the back burner a little bit. However, we do want to make this a priority because we want to use this as a platform to help as many people as we possibly can. And the idea of the podcast is to just give some real informative and applicable information that if you feel a little bit lost in the gym or any other aspect of training, really, we'll go through nutrition, all that sort of stuff, mindset, other things, sleep, whatever. Anything that comes under this health and fitness umbrella, I guess. If you feel a little bit lost on your journey, we're hoping that there, depending on your goal and what you're looking to try and achieve, there will be at some point a podcast that is going to help you. Our plan is to try and simplify the science so that people can understand what they actually have to do, because I think one of the biggest problems is so many people nowadays just want to use big words and really try and overcomplicate things, that all that really happens is people that don't understand what is being said don't understand what's being said.
Or they just don't go into context.
Well, yeah, people just end up lost and still. So it's actually not helpful.
But even the people that try to explain it basically, kind of, they don't make it applicable. So they'll just refer to terms like, well, just be in a calorie deficit. It's like,
yeah, but they never go do this.
Yes,
do you know what I mean?
And
it's
that's
just what people are looking for.
And I think that's kind of where we're heading with these podcasts going forward, is like, how can we give you guys something to literally walk away from these podcasts and go, okay, so I can apply X, Y, Z to then change my progress or to just get a little bit better.
Yeah.
I guess it's kind of conversations we have with clients all the time.
Exactly. So, and a lot of these topics will probably be based on some of the conversations that we have had with clients that week, the week before, whatever, because the likelihood is if that client's had those questions, other people are either going to have that question or at some point it might come up.
Yeah. And that's the thing with like the question for today. So today's question is the best exercise to build muscle. This has come up most recently for ourselves because the fitness industry does this funny thing of telling people that what they're doing is rubbish. So like the exercise you're doing is currently not doing what you think it's doing, so you should do this exercise, which I understand the reasons for this, and we'll kind of break down a little bit of the reasons why some exercises are better than others. But like, I want to kind of start by saying the best exercise to build muscle is pretty much the one you enjoy. The exercises that you find are easiest, the exercises you can progress on, are going to be the ones that help you build the most muscle. And it's not even if you're someone who just wants to put on a little bit of muscle, like you don't want to be Ronnie Coleman, still applies. And it's the same for anyone who is trying to be Ronnie Coleman. Like the biggest thing at the moment is the whole lat pull down doesn't build your lats, or bent over rows are not good for building your back at all, and things like this. And the Arnold Classics just happened in the UK, or whatever it's called now.
Yeah.
It's just happened in the UK. James Holland Head came third in it, and he's like done a few bit of training at like Kojo's, which is Jordan Peters and Corrines gym.
Yeah.
And I watched one of his videos where he had like 180 kilos, so it was like 4 plates in the bar. I thought he was going to deadlift it, and he started bent over rowing it, and he comes third in the Olympia, in Arnold's. But then you've got people saying, well, that's not good for building muscle.
Yeah.
So I kind of want today to help people to understand what goes into the process when we program of, well, this is why we choose these exercises, this is how we break it down, so on and so forth.
Yep. Okay.
So for starters, I think we need to kind of go over what does an exercise need to be classed as a good exercise.
Yep. Ultimately, that exercise just needs to effectively train the muscle you're trying to train. And I think probably effectively is the key term within that.
How would you look at it as effective? Because I don't get confused with this. I just get a little bit, I think people can get a little bit lost.
Yeah. So I think it's difficult because it depends on who you're working with and who the client is in front of you. Because you could go down to as far as like strength curves matching movement profiles and that kind of stuff. But I think if you've got somebody who just attends the gym 2 to 4 times a week and is looking to build some muscle and, you know, realistically has very little training experience, I don't really think you even need to worry about it.
Or interest.
Yeah.
Because I think that's the other thing is people don't have necessarily the interest in, yes, they want to build muscle, but they don't care which exercise they do.
Yeah. So for me, to be honest, if we were to make it simple, I would say in order for it to be effective, it needs to be an exercise where you can get the stimulus that you're looking to get in order for the adaptation that you're looking. So for example, if the goal is to build muscle, we know that the best way to, or the key mechanism to build muscle out of the 3 mechanisms that we have, the key mechanism is going to be mechanical tension.
Yep.
So therefore, if we were to keep it really simple, essentially an exercise that you can get enough load on to provide that mechanical tension stimulus that we need to be able to build muscle. Now, that might be, if we're thinking about, I don't know, pec improvement, that could be chest press machine, that could be dumbbell bench press, that could be barbell bench press. And you know, that then comes down to probably personal preference and current skill level, current training history, motor skills, all those kind of things. If you're a complete beginner, then get yourself on a chest press.
Yeah.
If you've been training for a few years and, you know, let's say you got more control than you need just for a chest press, barbell bench press. If you're really, you know, if you got really good motor control and fairly strong, you'll probably be able to load up a dumbbell bench press.
And that's where like people miss over or skip over the idea of like there's other things. Yes, we're talking about building muscle, but there's other benefits to using other like bits of equipment, like having to put your body in specific positions and having to like figure out how to move your limbs. Like I've got clients, like I've got a client at the moment who could move 10 times better. Like Bambi on ice comes to mind when I think about him. But the amount he's improved, and we've basically done that. We started on a chest press machine because I just needed to get some buy-in from a client. I just needed to train like his pec muscles and like put some load through it. And I wasn't going to be able to put some load through a dumbbell because he couldn't stabilize himself.
Exactly. So the skill, he doesn't have the required skill level to use the dumbbell. So therefore, the amount of load that the dumbbell weight that you're going to have to use is going to be so low that you're not going to get the load that's required to drive any form of real mechanical tension into the muscle tissue, so you're not getting enough load to hit that stimulus. So then for that client, a dumbbell bench press, for example, is no longer effective. Not saying a dumbbell bench press isn't an effective exercise, just for that person, it's right there and then in that situation, it's not an effective exercise to build muscle.
And that's where like things, because like the Smith machine kind of, so funny because I've been in fitness now just about long enough to see the trends. Some of the trends happen. So like when I first got into it, it was like everyone's basically like, if you go on the Smith machine, like you're an idiot. Like, and now the Smith machine, because I guess bodybuilding's coming to like, bodybuilding seems to be becoming more popular because of TikTok. I know it sounds funny, but like there seems to be like so much more of it in general public's face that like the Smith machine is now used all the time for stuff.
I feel like the industry just does circles, to be honest.
And this is why I think it's so confusing, because people just go, well, that's not a good exercise because he said it's not good exercise. Like, and this is the difficulty thing at the moment, is like, depending on who you follow and like the information you get, you could be feeding yourself one whole bias. So like if you followed the likes of JP, like the likes of Holland Head, for example, you're going to be looking at people who lift a lot of heavy weight. Now they're lifting it under control, but you may then think, okay, that's what I've got to do. So I've just got to think about kind of lifting really heavy weights. But then you could go over to like if I think of things like Cuba, I think of a bloke called Mike Van Vick over in Canada, and they're all very much like about like keeping tension, trying to feel the muscle move and working and stuff like that. And if you're only consuming that information, you'll feel like, well, one of the others is wrong, if that makes sense. And it's like, both are probably right.
Well, I think we know that both are probably right because they're all massive.
Do you know what I mean?
Right?
And
they've all built some muscle.
So I think like when it comes to like an exercise to be classified as good, if mechanical tension is going to be that main thing, like break that down simply for someone. What have they got to do? They've
got to have an exercise. They've got to choose an exercise that allows them to put, to be honest, like a significant amount of weight on it, relevant to their strength levels.
Yeah.
And I think if we're talking, you know, if we're keeping that as simple as we can keep it for general public going into a gym, I think that needs to be the first consideration.
Yeah. And because otherwise, so for something to be the like, for someone to say motivated by doing something, it needs to be the right amount of challenge. So what they have to do has to be the right amount of challenge. And that means that if you put them on an exercise which is extremely difficult to learn, like they're going to get real bored real quick because the challenge is too difficult. So they're going to check out.
Yeah, but they're also, because, so let's take, for example, somebody who doesn't have the motor skills, the coordination, the synchronization in their muscle to be able to do a dumbbell bench press at the moment. Yeah, one, the skill level is too high, so they're going to check out. But two, they're not going to see any results.
Yeah.
And that's what's going to keep people coming back. That's what's going to keep people motivated. Whereas if I was to just like, right, we're going to go on this Smith machine, we do incline bench press on a Smith machine, we'll do it for 6 weeks. Like, there's no real stability question because the machine's going to stabilize it for me. We're going to get full range of motion. We're just going to put as much weight on as you can safely handle. And we're going to push it till you can't push it anymore.
Yeah. And there will be some level of stabilization having to happen. There's some level of getting their body in the right position that has to happen. So, like, you're not completely removing some element of skill, but you're just giving them the right amount. And that means like over that 6 week period, for example, like this is where if someone can only come a few days a week and they're just starting out, you need to get wins real quick. So like if you're someone who's starting out, you want to see progress pretty quickly, means you want to pick something which seems to be really like reasonably easy for you to get a handle on. And it's the same thing as you start to get a bit more experience, this thing that still comes back to is, well, what can I actually do and what is the right amount of challenge? So like if I was to get really bored in doing that, then maybe it's like, okay, well maybe I've been doing an incline Smith machine. Maybe I'm now going to like go into like an incline barbell bench press. So like I'm now changing it. So I've been 6 weeks on this incline Smith. It's actually starting to like, I can see a bit of results. I can feel like I'm getting stronger each week. Kind of we're going up a little bit here, a little bit there. So then the next week we do the same thing. We just kind of, okay, we're going to challenge the skill component of it now because I'm now getting bored of this exercise. And if like the enjoyment is going to be the thing that keeps people consistent, and this is the thing, like it doesn't change just because of how experienced you are. So even if you're experienced, you're probably defaulting to the exercises you enjoy. So like, and this is the thing which you see all over the place, is people probably default to the exercises they enjoy. And like that needs to be kind of at the forefront of your mind, is like, there are a number of exercises which train your pec. If you prefer one over the other, you could literally stay with that exercise and build muscle. You don't have to do any other exercise if you don't want to, just because someone else is doing it and telling you that the incline Smith is bad or that dumbbells are too difficult.
And the likelihood is, if you're somebody who's doing that and you're choosing an exercise because somebody has said, oh, do this one instead, do this one instead, the likelihood is you're probably not being consistent with the exercise that you're on. So you're probably not going to get the results you're after anyway, because you're just hopping from exercise to exercise to exercise, when in reality, yeah, we want to mix things up when people get bored to keep them consistent. But there also needs to be a level of repetition, because you need to say, right, we did 40 kilos this week on that Smith machine bench press. Next week, we're going to try and do 42.5 kilos. Week after, 45.
And that's where the challenge comes in, because each week that's getting harder. You're trying, and you're basically doing what you need to do to build muscle. Like, to break it down to the most simplest terms, pick an exercise that you are comfortable doing, that you enjoy, that you have the right skill level for, that you can progress on week to week.
It also, coming back to that effectiveness, it also needs to be an exercise that not only that the stimulus, you know, we can load it up enough to get the stimulus we want, but it also needs to be an exercise that you are able to progressively overload, because we know that progressive overload is, you know, the key driver that's going to give us any form of benefits and progression in everything that we do. And for example, yeah, okay, there's more ways to progressively overload things and add weight, but ultimately, to be honest, adding weight is, let's face it, the best way to build muscle. If you're currently on dumbbells and you're on like 5 kilo dumbbells, for example, there is a possibility that the gym that you're training in, the next set of dumbbells that they have is 10 kilos, which is twice the amount of weight that you are adding, 100% of the weight that you've just been pushing. Whereas if you're on a Smith machine or a machine of some form, the likelihood is you are able to take smaller jumps and have smaller increments to be able to progressively overload.
And it's so funny, because like an effective exercise is exactly that. If it's something that you need to be able to progress, it's as simple as that. Like something you can progressively overload, and like we'll cover multiple different ways that you can do that in a future episode. So, but for now, take that into consideration when you do pick your exercises you're going to kind of go forward on. Is to be effective, you need to be able to progress week to week on an exercise. Whatever that exercise is, kind of comes down to you just picking something at your skill level. And this is where, when it comes to the future, and like people are now talking to, like, once we've spoken to beginners or people just starting out or people in it a couple of years who are still trying to find their feet, once we start speaking to advanced people, this is where it still plays into the exercise you enjoy, the exercise you can progress on. And like, this is where it gets a little bit squirrely of people going line of pull and things like that. Before I go into that, what is the difference between compound exercises and like an isolation exercise? Because why wouldn't I go in and you said like, right, go on a machine, like a machine chest press to hit my pec. Why would I pick that over picking a machine fly, for example?
I mean, well, first of all, to define the definition, an isolation exercise is an exercise where only one joint is moving. So, for example, a bicep curl is going to be an isolation exercise. The only joint that's moving is going to be the elbow. A hamstring curl, isolation exercise, the only joint that's moving is going to be the knee. Calf raise, isolation exercise, the only joint that's moving is the ankle. For example, bench press is going to be a compound exercise because 2 or more joints are moving. So bench press, for example, shoulder and elbow joint are both moving. So it makes it a compound exercise. And to be honest, like, you know, realistically, you probably could use a machine fly. You're going to effectively train the chest. But to be honest, the only reason why I'd pick a chest press machine is because going back to the first point of making it effective is I can add more load. I can get more stimulus. Yeah, I'm getting some help from my triceps and, you know, potentially some form of deltoid activation, but ultimately there's more load potentially going into the pec muscle.
Yeah. And that's the thing, like when you think isolation, it's like an isolating a muscle. You're basically like, when it says, oh, a bicep curl, kind of my elbow joint's moving, your bicep like crosses your elbow joint. So any muscle which kind of crosses that joint is going to be the muscle you're training. So when you think about your move in your body, when you move a joint in a specific way, the muscle that kind of goes past that joint will be the one that you're training. I really like using compounds, especially when we're limited on the amount of days we're training. And I say compounds because we're using this like machine bench press. We'll stick with this example. I really like that because if I've got someone coming in 2 days a week, for example, or they can only train like 1 day a week or 3 days a week, like I want to put them on an exercise that will hit multiple muscle groups, because that for me means like it's effective for my time. Like I don't have a lot of time with that person to then go, well, we're going to like isolate the tricep like separately from isolating the chest, because I don't have the time available. So if you're limited on time and you're wondering what exercise is a good exercise for me, time comes into it as well. So what exercise can I pick which is going to hit like the muscles I want to train? Ultimately, I want to train my triceps and my chest. So I'm going to pick an exercise which hits both at the same time. So that's like part of the reason that we choose that. Again, when you get to more like training more often, more frequently, or 4, 5, 6 times a week, that's when you can start to break things down. Because otherwise, if you were going compound weeks, days after days, you might find yourself getting really burnt out, but you also may just find yourself being really sore all the time because you want to be able to spread things out over the week.
Also, if you're a beginner, you probably just don't need that much stimulation.
Yeah, legit. Like I've had a client yesterday come in. We did like a couple of goblet squats. I did like 2 sets of 6 back squats with a barbell. We did 2 sets of 6 Romanian deadlifts with a barbell. 2 sets of 6 bench press with a barbell, and he's really sore, really sore. And it's like that's not even touching a warm up for us.
Yeah.
And it's like the kind of progression and the runway of progression, if you think of it like that, is you have this ability or this journey to go along. Whenever you start something, there is experts on that, and there's people that are really advanced and have been doing it for ages. It's the same as when you start doing anything. Like when you start at the beginning, you want to start at the beginning. You want to start with the place where you can progress the most. This is why, like when you take a job, normally you go in as an apprentice because you're going to learn the skills needed to do that job. You don't go in and be like, right, I'm going to be managing director and tell you all what to do because I have no idea what you're doing. Like it's pretty much the same thing. You're not going to go in on the advanced kind of 5 days a week doing all the exercises under the sun because you don't need to at this point.
No, but that is unfortunately what most people will do because it's what they see on social media.
Yeah, well, I think that kind of brings us on to the next point, really, because this is where, like, we've already kind of discussed like machine versus free weights and which is better, to a certain degree. But this is where social media kind of is really difficult to navigate because there's not context. So this is where like podcasts are really good. Longer form, like, content is really good because we can give context to why we make the decisions we make. So someone who puts out a video saying this is the best exercise for your lat doesn't give context. It's really difficult for me to go, but I've been doing pull-ups and this person says they're not good to hit my lats. So what do I do now? Because I've got this person telling me I need to do like a single arm kind of cable pull down row thing. Like, how do I navigate that? How do I know what's the best thing to do?
That's really, it's difficult to answer, isn't it? Because like at the end of the day, like a lat pull down will effectively train your lats.
Yeah.
Like it's called a lat pull down.
And this is when people go to which degree, because you'll see a lot of like literally now, and it's so funny. If for me being a fly on the wall in the industry and following, like, let's just call it big names in the industry or people who have a large following, the shift that just seems to happen, and like you said, the rotation of exercises, the rotation of theories and like methods kind of just come and go throughout these times where whatever's popular gets spoke about. It's like Squat University brings out a wide toe shoe, so then like Eugene Tao does a fucking video saying, oh, I wear like Vivo shoes, they got a wide toe box, but then I also wear these shoes. And it's like, so we're all going to jump on this bandwagon because this is the popular thing to talk about, because the guy with like millions and millions of followers is talking about it. So for you guys to gain traction, you're all going to talk about it as well. And it's like, I understand it, but like everyone then just goes into this kind of thing of, well, we're just going to bash everyone else because they're stupid. Like the thing the other day of like when people say training optimally, someone put a post saying the other day basically saying like one of these memes, like when people say training optimally is stupid, and it was like, I don't know, some idiot banging his head off the wall, whatever it was, but it was just like, you need to be able to get context to what people are saying and understand that a lot of what people will say on social media will be conflicting because it drives interaction. So what if I say something on social media saying what this person said is wrong, what I'm saying is right, that will create interaction because of, well, human nature more than anything. But to understand why and understand when it's applicable, that's the most important thing, if that makes sense.
Yeah. So this going back to this like single arm lat pull down, it's just like, yeah, okay, so the position that they're putting themselves in with like their elbow slightly close to the body and like following, I guess, a bit more like shoulder extension line, as opposed to more like an adduction based movement that you're going to see in a lat pull down, is going to hit, so maybe like a lower part of the lat as you work your way through and, you know, come around the rib cage slightly. But so in the lat pull down, we might not train, I don't know, the last 1/8 of the bottom of the lat, but like the real question is like, does it matter?
And so this is the hard bit. The only time it matters is when you're at a position and you're advanced enough to make it matter. What I mean by that is if you are stepping on an Olympia bodybuilding stage, or you're trying to be a professional bodybuilder, or you are a professional bodybuilder, you can do things that work for your body, and that these minute details may make a difference, but they also make...
And like the only exercises that I realistically have done over that period of time is going to be pull-ups, lat pull down with a bar. It's going to be bent over rows, T-bar row, seated row. Like, so to say that these exercises don't train the lats can't be true, because we've got a pretty big set of lats. Like I said, like not the same size as these guys that stand on bodybuilding shows, but that's not what my goal is.
Yeah.
But and so I think, I don't know. It's just that it's it's the top of the pyramid, isn't it? It's the iceberg.
Yes.
It's the tip of the iceberg. And the reality is most people could do with bigger foundations that they work on first of all. And yeah, if you're looking to stand on a bodybuilding stage where people are analyzing your body down to like micro striations of what your muscle looks like, then yeah, you might need to effectively hit this iliac part of the lat, the lower part of the lat. But in reality, if you're somebody who goes to the gym 3-4 times a week and the gym is the gym is part of your life, but it's not your life. You have a job, you have a family, you have other hobbies. A lat pull down and a dumbbell single arm row and some seated rows are going to do a pretty good job for you.
And this is where I want to speak about the fact that people go from, you've got to feel your muscle working. I say that to my clients all of the time. I do it myself. I want to feel my muscle working. It feels great once you do an exercise. You've got like a big pump in a muscle. You can feel a muscle working. Like, it's awesome. Like, it feels amazing. But don't sacrifice putting load through that muscle. You have to still put load through that muscle to build muscle, which goes back to the whole thing that we started with. For an exercise to be effective, you need to be able to put load through it. So if you're going to pick an exercise which you can feel a lot, are you putting tension through your muscle, or are you just squeezing your muscle? Because like, that's going to be really, and like, especially when it comes to lat work, like, because am I tense my lat, or am I kind of crunching? Am I like doing this like weird oblique crunch? And like, because you see a load of people who will take this single arm kind of lat pull down that we're talking about, where your arm's out in front of you and you're kind of bringing your elbow close to your side, and you'll see a load of people then crunch their shoulder down towards their hip, or crunch their rib cage down towards their hip. Now, your lat will do that to your body, so it will kind of like bend you to the side. But if you intentionally bend yourself to the side, is your lat doing that, or are you just oblique crunching? So is the muscle you can feel your lat or not? Because a lot of people struggle to feel these muscles on their back. So this is why, like, making sure whatever exercise you pick, you can still put load through it and you can still add load. Don't get so caught up in, I've got to have this perfect form, perfect exercise with the perfect feeling. Like, if you focus, like, perfect's the enemy of good when it comes to this type of thing. You need to work hard, and yes, you need to pick exercises which train your body, like your whole body, or train the muscle you're trying to target. But which exercise that is doesn't matter, and you won't know unless you do it for a period of time. So like, don't just go, well, he's doing bent over rows, and then I see another guy 3 weeks later doing like this single arm lat pull down, and I'm going, I don't know which one to pick. Pick one, stick with one for as long as you can. So like, for as long as you can progress on it. Like, I always give a minimum of 4 weeks, like 3 to 4 weeks, but like north of like 6 to 8 weeks, like you could stick with the same exercise if you can progress on it. And I mean, every exercise is a skill. Remember that as well. Like, every exercise is a skill. So you need to learn the skill as good as you possibly can.
Yeah. See, this is where you and I actually slightly differ.
Yeah, it is.
Because, and I know what you just said about like, don't solely focus on making sure you can feel the muscle, but I actually never focus on whether I can feel the muscle, to be honest. I do with clients sometimes, but simply because I want to get a bit of buy-in from them and then wanting to feel it. But the main thing I focus on is, like, let's say like a single arm row, for example, is like, I know that my lat's attached to my humerus and my upper arm, and I know that my lats extend my elbow. And like we said earlier, a muscle will cross a joint and make that joint move. There is no other way in the human body that can make that your joint can move. It's the muscle that makes the joint move. So if that joint is moving, that muscle is making that joint move. So that muscle has to be activating and working to do something. So I just, like, heaviest weight I can, do the movement. Obviously good form, good technique, but heaviest weight I can, do the movement. And I'm pretty much guaranteeing that muscle's doing something, because otherwise my arm wouldn't be moving.
And this is why training is so good, is because, like, I mean, my lats aren't that bad, and like, do you know what I mean? And I focus on the connection, and it's like, doesn't mean I don't do what Mark does in the same sense of trying to overload the muscle, because like, I love being able to cue a client or cue myself, which makes me be able to feel a muscle working. So like to the point of like, I know I'm hitting it. I know because this is the thing that I see loads of people talking about, and they call it like, so this Mike Van Wyck guy, I really love his stuff because he just talks like straight and kind of, I like the way he communicates things, and he calls it on lat. So when you're doing one of these pull downs, you're on lat. Right. And like, I find it funny because like the way I explain it to clients is some exercises you'll be able to feel your muscles, right? So some exercises you will be able to feel your muscles, and some exercises I want you to try to feel your muscles working. The reason is like, I am trying to find the best way to cue someone to get their body in the right position to get their muscle to work. So if I've got someone who's very shoulder dominant and we're doing some kind of chest press and their elbows keep flaring out and they're almost like, think of this as like punching over the top. So imagine like you're kind of punching over something to punch someone, or you're kind of hooking up underneath. If I hook up underneath, I'm more likely to get my chest to work. If I come over the top, I'm not going to feel my chest working, and I'm not probably going to get my chest to work as much because my shoulders are going to protract forward. I'm going to feel it on my shoulders a lot more, and it's going to like not train the muscle we're looking to hit. So in those positions, I will cue people to try and focus on trying to feel it, only if it puts them in the right position, if that makes sense. The other exercises that we're doing, kind of like chin-ups and pull-ups, things like that, I'm probably not going to feel my lat working on that. Like, I look at this single arm lat pull down the same as I look at a machine chest fly. Mm-hmm. Like, it's an isolation movement for your lat that still comes after I do a compound movement for my lat. Yeah. Does that make any sense? Like,
yeah, absolutely. Like, yeah, you know, there's, because it's the same with kind of like, you know, if you take a deadlift versus a hamstring curl, you know, you're not necessarily going to feel that deadlift mega in the hamstrings as compared to what you would do if you're on a hamstring curl machine. Yeah. But it's not to say that the amount of tension that's going through your hamstrings when you deadlift isn't there.
100%. And this is why I love, this is what I hate strong word. I disagree with people who are in a camp, because I think if soon as you put yourself and pigeonhole yourself in a camp of I am this type of person, you lose the ability to change your mind. So when I really love feeling my muscle, but I know the benefits of lifting heavy because I'm not burying my head in the sand and being dogmatic with the thing that's got me to the position I'm at, if that makes sense.
Yeah, and I'm equally the same in terms of like, I love the feeling of like loading up a barbell and going heavy, but I equally like doing, you know, once I've done a load of bench press, a load of incline dumbbell bench press, whatever, getting on a cable machine, doing some flies, and yeah, my pecs are on fire.
Yeah, and like this is where you if you go top of the pyramid, and top of the pyramid being all of the little details that don't really matter that people love to focus on, like if you focus on that, that's where you'll get lost. You need to focus on the main things and the most basic things when it comes to training. And I think that's where personal trainers go wrong. That's where individuals go wrong. It's because they focus on the top of the pyramid. Top of the pyramid are for the elites, are for people who have the time, the passion, the experience, the enjoyment to look into these things. For me, it's very much like, I'm going to do the basics. I'm going to do them well. I'm going to basically, well, it's doing the basics. I'm going to progressively overload. I'm going to pick an exercise which I enjoy. I'm going to try and get stronger. I'm going to try and move my body in the right way, in the correct way, like the best way to give my muscle the opportunity to work. And what I mean by that is like, once, like going back to this lat thing, the reason people keep their elbow close is because it gives your lat a better ability to work. And that's like your kind of like, I guess, biomechanics, you could say. If your elbow is out wide, you're probably more likely to get kind of trap or rhomboids to work. So this is where like putting your body in the right positions to do the exercise is extremely important, but you don't need to overlook like just the basics of putting load through a muscle.
Yeah. So I just went on my phone because what you said, I remember I saw a quote the other day on social media and I saved it. Cool. And it says, being good at the basics makes you advanced. And I think like that's pretty key to what we're talking about.
I mean, is that the place to leave this? Like, is that the place to leave it? So to give you something applicable to walk away with, because I think there's a lot of stuff there. There's a lot of stuff to digest. I mean, think of your skill level. Where are you coming into this? So where are you coming into this podcast listening to? What information are you looking for? Are you looking for someone who, if you are advanced, for example, and you've come here and you are trying to step on a bodybuilding stage, for example, I don't know why you're listening to us, but if you are, that's when those details could matter to you. That's when it could be important to choose exercises which do kind of train your muscles through its full length. And again, like kind of Mark said earlier, a bit of like strength profile work and trying to make sure the optimal line of pull is in play. It could be important. If it's not, if you're coming at it, you're just someone who is trying to get a little bit stronger, change the way they look a little bit. Don't look into the details of things. Like, you don't need to.
Yeah. And I would say, like, realistically, for probably 80% plus of the population, they don't really need to worry about that sort of stuff.
No.
Being honest. And even if you are in that, like, even if you are in that top 1%, like, the likelihood is if you get on a machine, whether it's like some hammer strength plate loaded machine, you're going to be able to probably push more weight than what you can with a set of dumbbells anyway. So even if you're in that top 1%, like, you can still get more load on a machine. Yeah. Like, JP uses machines all the time.
So, and this is the other thing. Exercise, like you say this all the time, success leaves clues. So what are people doing that are successful? And don't be blinkered when you look for this. We'll look at all of these people. Look at the people who are where you want to be. Take a selection of 20 people and look at all of the different things they're doing, because they'll all be doing something slightly different, but they'll all have something in common. Most of the things that are being common is they're all doing exercises they enjoy. So that would be another applicable thing for you to take away from it. Look at your skill level, but look at the exercises you enjoy.
Yeah. And then I would say, like, relative to your skill level, choose an exercise that is going to allow you to make it as simple as possible. Choose an exercise that's going to allow you to put the most amount of weight on it.
Done. That is pretty much how you build a muscle.
Yeah.
If you stick with the same exercise for 6 to 8 weeks, an exercise that you are at the right skill level for, that you can put weight onto, and you can overload that week to week.
Yeah. Yeah. So I would say, like, the most key things: choose an exercise that you enjoy, choose an exercise that you can put the most amount of weight on relative to your skill level, and that exercise needs to be an exercise that you are able to progressively overload in probably a conservative manner. And what I mean by that is just like, you can put somewhere between 1 to 2 kilos on it a week, not having to go, oh, my only option is I add 10 kilos a week, because you're not going to continually be able to add 10 kilos a week.
Yeah, done. There isn't really much else, like, when it comes to that, because then we're going into like the realms of like programming and stuff like that. I think what we'll do is, like, so we're going to run through this kind of like muscle building series for the next, I don't know, 8, maybe 10, maybe 12 episodes. We'll see what happens and how we get through them, because I can already feel like we're going to end up adding on like a Q&A episode at the end, like towards the end, of things that we haven't spoke about that don't need a full episode to speak about.
Yeah. So
we can just add them on. But yeah, it's good to be back.
Good.
First one in the diary. You may hear from a few other people as well while we go through this. But yeah, this has been enjoyable to kind of get one back in the diary. We will be, I'm going to say it. Should I say it?
What?
Are we saying weekly?
Oh, God. We can try. We can definitely try.
I'm going to say it. I'm going to say it, and I'll put my chicken on the block, and we'll go for that.
until next week when my diary's absolutely slammed. But yeah, sweet. Let's do it weekly.
If you've seen the bro science, and he's like, at the end of his videos, he's like, new video and then goes on to an advert. It's like, okay, cool. We're gonna take that approach every week, like it's been since April.
Yeah, wicked.
Cheers, guys. I guess if you're listening to this one and you haven't listened to any of the others, probably good. We've had 6 months since we did the last one, and by God have we learnt more. I've learnt more. Apparently not about technical stuff, because this one we had a lot of technical problems with. My name's Charlie. I am one half of Real Coaching Radio. I say one half as in we are the ones who have just started this thing of just talking and trying to help people as much as possible. Like, when it comes to just some of the questions. Like, there's conversations me and Mark had that I'm like, I wish this was recorded on a podcast, because it's really beneficial for me. It's really beneficial for you guys as well. Mark is been amazing for my progress as a personal trainer, as a person. He's like provided a space with Origin Athletic, provided education through my PT course, which has got me to be able to like know enough to actually make an impact in the world and help people. And when I say in the world, I genuinely mean the like 100 clients that I've worked with, or 100, might be more than that now. I don't even know how many I'm on. I know I was over 100 mark, but like the 100 clients that I've worked with, it's actually a brilliant feeling to be able to provide a service and support for people, and doing it via a podcast as well is ultimately the best way to reach as many people with context, because social media, you don't get a lot of context with posts, whereas this you do. So hopefully this is going to help you team to like get a good understanding of what you can do when it comes to building muscle. But yeah, this is Real Coaching Radio. You can find me, Hat the Body, Hat the Mind on Instagram. You can find Mark at Mark Origin Series. You can find Real Coaching Radio on Instagram. You can find my PT course on Instagram. We should all just have had one thing and one name, but you guys can go to any of those places to find any of those things. My name's Charlie. This has been Real Coaching Radio. We will see you on the next one.